the rest of our members get here, but we'll try to keep this rolling with our limited time. So we are going to start with, let me look real quick. We're going to start with House Committee Substitute for House Bill 3009 with Representative Hausman. Good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. As we have one, senators. I would just like to tell, my name is Wendy Hausman. I am representative from St. Charles County, District 65 for the record. And basically there was a problem, and this bill is a solution. And so as many of you know, in 2025, there was a terrible tornado that hit St. Louis. And during that time, it displaced a lot of Missourians in that area where I'm located right outside of. And they had needed life-sustaining medications. And because of that, this bill came about to try to expedite some help that people who no longer had their medications could get those. This bill empowers the Board of Pharmacy to temporarily waive state regulations during a declared emergency that ensures pharmacies can ship and transfer prescriptions across state lines to reach Missourians in crisis, kind of avoiding the red tape. It isn't a free-for-all. So there are specific guidelines. The waivers are strict and it's limited to disaster areas. There is a time limit during the emergency period, and it requires full and complete compliance with federal law. And let's see here. This bill also includes critical language. It allows pharmacies to treat flu and strep and COVID directly, crucial for like rural areas during a emergency situation. It also speeds up the access of nebulizers and respiratory systems that would be needed, but it authorizes out-of-the-state drug distributions so that they can fill in those gaps where there's shortage. So the pharmacies will still need to follow all of the rules. They will need to be licensed in the state of the disaster, where the disaster is located. Waivers only apply in the area the disaster is located, and waivers only apply during the duration of this disaster period. So it's very, very regulated, and we're not trying to open up any scapegoats. We just want to make sure that people are taken care of during emergency situations. And with that, I would take any questions.
So is this during the governor would have to declare a state of emergency for this to go into effect? Okay, thank you. Any questions for the representative? All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anyone here to testify in favor of the bill?
Hello.
All good. Chair, member of the committee, Henry Telemack with the Missouri Pharmacy Association, as well as RX Outreach, to go on record is in support of Representative Hausman's bill. Rarely do we get to say this, but you guys have actually voted this out of the Senate. It's in entirety except for the drug distribution portion. Everything else has been voted out. There is one piece in there regarding ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine being over the counter once the FDA approves it. Senator Cola amended the amendment that Senator Lewis added yesterday. We'll try and add that language back in. There is one minor tweak necessary for the Board of Pharmacy and the Board of Healing Arts on implementing the vaccine list, but outside of that, everything's been passed out of here.
I appreciate you sharing that information because I was going to ask the representative. It seems like we worked on this bill. All right, thank you.
Perfect.
Appreciate your testimony. Anyone else here in favor of the bill?
Good morning,
I hope
Madam
that's not your
Chairwoman.
breakfast.
Do it.
I hope that's not your breakfast.
Sorry. Good morning, Madam Chairwoman, members of the committee. My name is Arnie C. A.C. Dinoff, State Public Advocate. I submitted my online form in favor of this bill. Hopefully staff has received it. I was in favor of this issue in the House. I think it's imperative that during a crisis or when ordering the administration of drugs, that pharmacists have the ability to do that. And so I wholly support this pharmaceutical bill. I think it's a good move for Missouri. It's a good move for Missourians, especially in rural areas where there might not be a doctor for 2 or 3 counties in a medical desert within our state. For those reasons, I highly support this House bill. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Appreciate it. Thank you for your testimony. Next, anyone else here to testify in favor of the bill? Anyone here to testify for informational purposes? Anyone here to testify in opposition? All right, great. Any closing comments?
I think that was perfect.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative. All right, now we're going to go to House Committee Substitute for House Bill 24. It would help if I put my glasses on.
2465.
I don't want to wear glasses.
I should write a little better.
2465 with Representative Jones. You're up, buddy.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Mike Jones. I represent House District 12. HB 2465 updates Missouri statute to give small businesses more flexibility in how they access health care coverage. Right now, sole proprietors and small employers have fewer options when it comes to obtaining health insurance, and a company with less than 2 employees is forced to seek coverage on the ACA market. This bill would allow them to purchase a group health plan outside of the ACA framework. And with that, I'll take questions.
Awesome. So is there something like this available through the chambers?
Yeah, so the chamber's in favor of this, but no, there was. And a lot of folks were kind of grandfathered into that, and then something has taken place where it's no longer available.
Through the chamber?
I've been working with a couple of members of the chamber, and it's been a problem. I think they've seen it coming. I got this from a constituent who he's a sole proprietor, very successful, couldn't shop a group plan, was forced on the ACA market. So he thought, well, because he didn't have an employee, so he thought, well, I'll add my wife. Well, you can't do that because they're still counted as one if you had your wife and your child. So what this does is it removes that stipulation and just lowers it down, because you have to, under statute right now, you have to have 2, but your wife and your child can't count as a second if you add them as an employee. So this removes that barrier and then just brings it down to 1 so that you can shop wherever you want on the open market for health insurance.
Okay, I appreciate it. Any questions for the representative? All right. Anyone here to testify in favor of the bill?
Thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman, members of the committee. My name is Arnie C. AC Dinoff, State Public Advocate. Again, I testified in favor of this bill back in the House, I believe back in February, maybe. It's been a while, a few months. This makes a lot of sense. This is common sense legislation. I don't believe that in terms of the count towards the people within a plan should be, for the family members. I think that this is sensible, a no-brainer piece of legislation. Therefore, I support this bill. Thank you, Madam
Arnie.
Chairwoman.
Did you submit it online?
Yes, ma'am, I did. Did you receive it?
We'll look.
Okay, cool.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
All right, appreciate it. Anyone else here to testify in favor of the bill? Anyone here to testify for informational purposes? Anyone here to testify in opposition? Thank you, Representative. All right, we'll go to House Committee Substitute for House Bill 2470. Representative?
Sorry. I'm sorry.
No worries. We were going to count down from 3 if you pass it to the next person.
Well, I
All
got
right.
the nudge from behind, so I'm glad someone was paying attention.
job.
I forgot my hearing aid, so I can't hear real well this morning. Mike Steinmeyer, District 20, Sugar Creek Independence area. So dropped off some information on the bill yesterday. I hope that you received it. It tells the story of my granddaughter, which is part of the reason why we're here today. But more than that is just to make sure that Missouri families have a place to go to find answers when their world is changed overnight, literally, and the long term and utilizing our flagship Missouri University to be a point for the research and also for the collection of data that we can compile to find out what research is being conducted, not just in Missouri, but across the nation. And we've discovered some of that already. So if you have any questions, just... You did? I'm sorry. Well, why do I listen to him then? I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I have a different bill, 2746. Again, I couldn't hear very well, so I apologize.
No worries. Go ahead and.
Can we
your
just
bill
go
right now.
forward?
Yep.
Okay.
you're just fine.
Thank you. Thank you for the flexibility. So, again, did you receive the information we dropped off yesterday? We did. Okay. So, if so, I'll take any questions at this time.
Well,
So.
just if you would just cover the basis of the bill.
Yes.
That way, because I was reading what I had in front of me and I wasn't quite
And
sure it
it's
was
not the same
happening, so-
thing, was it?
All right.
Okay, so the basis of the bill is to create a pediatric disease task force that would be housed and headquartered really in the University of Missouri, which they've been working with me on this. And it has a zero fiscal note and would have appointments of industry professionals as well as advocates for parents and for children. And this is really just to put Missouri on the map as the head and not the tail in terms of pediatric research when our worlds are changed. And this, again, came from when my world was stopped last year when my 5-year-old granddaughter was diagnosed with a rare genetic brain cancer. And so she's in remission, thank God. She was at Children's Mercy, and KU helped with that, and it pained me to have to go to KU. So, so we need to position ourselves as the head of that spear for pediatric research. And so the task force would be compiled of, or be composed of appointees from the Senate and the House. The governor will make appointments as well. Zero physical note. And they would meet regularly, and it has a sunset at 2030 if we haven't made any recommendations back to the legislature. But I think we're already making progress. We're finding more and more information as we do the research. So with that, I'll take any questions.
All right, thank you.
Thank
Any
you for your
questions
flexibility.
the representative? Seeing none. Anyone here to testify in favor of the bill?
Now you can come up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name's John Ruth.
Good morning, John.
It's good to be with you this morning. My apologies for embarrassing the representative. I have a daughter named Camden who lives with a rare genetic condition, and it has just inspired us to become advocates for families who live with pediatric, rare, and genetic diseases. Several years ago, this body and the House was kind to appropriate an opportunity for a grant to do research leading to treatments which are not otherwise profitable for pharmaceutical companies to undertake themselves. We started a nonprofit organization focused on that purpose, and were awarded the grant, which we're grateful for. Yesterday I had our monthly progress update, and we are making some tremendous progress that's taking place at NextGen, the Roy Blunt NextGen Center at the University of Missouri. We're harnessing all divisions and departments of the university. It's quite an incredible example of collaboration, across departments. Where we sit is we have some very real shots on goal to make improvements for this genetic condition. Your investment in this project just recently brought in nearly $1 million from the state of New York. A gentleman who works for a very large family office, a former hedge fund, has resources, could take his assets anywhere. Just found out at the end of last year that his daughter Violet has the same condition. He flew in to Columbia Airport on January 6th, toured our facilities, loved what we were doing, and brought money from New York to this state to pile on to your investment. What we hope to do then is use existing medications, repurposed, and it sounds like science fiction, real applications in gene therapy, right? You give a software update to the body essentially, and while these are awful diseases to have, we live in an incredible point in time where we can do something about them, and that kind of research is taking place right here in this state. This committee speaks to me. I feel like we are well on our way. Our daughter will be as well off as she can be. We will certainly leave, this world better than we found it as a result of your help and the help of the great folks at Mizzou. But there are so many other resources in the state that we can harness, and I think this committee could be a great place for these kind of ideas to resonate and for us to find broader collaborations from Kansas City to St. Louis, from Columbia to Springfield. The things it takes to fix people are at our fingertips, but sometimes it's about getting the right folks in the room to move the ball forward. So Representative Steinmeyer's idea about having this committee, I think, can be more than just another committee that talks to itself in the walls, but can deliver real impact. And if it comes to fruition, as an example, I would be happy to volunteer my name to serve on it. So thank you for your consideration and for my testimony in support of 2740.
2740, sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
And I'll leave my witness form here on the table.
Appreciate it. Any questions for the witness? Seeing none. Next in favor? We have till 10, right?
I think so. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Dusty Schneiders. I am the government liaison for the University of Missouri system, and I want to support, we support House Bill 2740. John did a very good job of describing what some of the research that we do at the University of Missouri, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
All right. Thank you for your testimony. Appreciate it. Any questions? Seeing none. Thank you for your time. That's House Bill 2740. Thank you. Anyone else here to testify in favor?
Good morning, Madam Chair, member of the committee. My name is Rachel Bauer, here on behalf of the Missouri State Medical Association and the Missouri Association of Osteopathic Physicians and Surgeons, the state's two largest trade associations for physicians, in support of House Bill 2740.
Thank you. Appreciate your testimony. Any questions? Thank you. Anyone else here to testify in favor?
Thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman, members of the committee. My name is Arnie C. AC Dinoff, State Public Advocate. I submitted my online testimony in favor of the bill 2740. It seems like ages ago, I believe it was back in January, that this bill appeared over in the House. I'm in full favor of this bill. I like it because there's no fiscal note. I like it because it's going to address a lot of pediatric issues and try to hone those into one type zone. But there is one caveat that I want to get across to the committee. And for some reason in Missouri, we have a lot of boards and commissions. A lot of boards and commissions are not fulfilled or appointed by the governor. We have boards and commissions that sit idle. We have boards and commissions that draft reports and come up with studies, and unfortunately, they get dust, either because of appropriation issues or administrative issues or political issues. When it comes to children, nobody should stand in front of the path of finding cures or finding the best treatment for Missouri pediatric residents. I think it's very important and cognizant to be mindful of trying to find resources and available medicine and available treatments for our children of our state, because they are the innocent ones. However, this board and commission, I want to really see some drive. I want to see some gumption. I want to see some things get done rather than another board or commission added to the governor's list. And I don't want to see any reports sit idle, collect dust on somebody's bookshelf, to look pretty in somebody's office saying that they accomplished something when really they didn't, without institutionalized or implementing that study and that report. We have the research availability, we have the medical background, we have the University of Missouri Medical School. We can do this, and I want to make sure that we don't just make sure that this has dust on it, that we actually implement what the report says and what the recommendations are. That's my testimony, and I'm in full support of this bill. Thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you. Anyone else here to testify in favor? Did you have any questions? Sorry. All right, anyone here to testify for informational purposes? Anyone here to testify in opposition? All right, Representative, you may wrap up your House bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator, I appreciate your time. Thank you for your flexibility and your patience with me this morning. I look forward to being able to do great things for all generations in Missouri, and it starts here. And I appreciate your concern and
All
your
right.
support. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the hearing on House Bill 2740. We're next going to hear House Committee Substitute for House Bill 2536. Begin when you're ready, Representative.
Thank you. My name is Becky Laubinger. I'm the state rep from District 117. It's very timely that we're hearing this women's protection bill today, as this morning marked the beginning of a 24-hour period of time that our Capitol Dome is lighted in teal in recognition of Sexual Assault Awareness Month. The governor sent out a message yesterday, and included in that message was the statistic that it's estimated that 1 in 3 women and 1 in 7 men experience sexual violence in their lifetime. Another survey of women found that over 80% of women in the United States have experienced sexual harassment, with these experiences most often occurring in public spaces and perpetrated by strangers. House Bill 2536 provides protection to women in 2 main ways. First, it protects women by clarifying in statute that male and female are defined by biological sex. This is necessary because of the foundational inequalities of risk, strength, and vulnerability that are most apparent in situations where people are in a state of undress, sleep, or physical competition. Second, House Bill 2536 provides protection to women by ensuring that government-owned or managed multi-occupancy spaces in these especially vulnerable situations, such as restrooms, locker rooms, showers, and sleeping quarters, are designated for use based on biological sex. Included in the legislation are places such as correctional facilities, juvenile detention centers, public buildings, municipal airports, public schools, including colleges and universities. The bill does include reasonable exceptions for custodial work, emergencies, law enforcement activities, adults assisting minors, or individuals with physical disabilities. The legal cause of action is against the entities that create spaces that force males and females to share these vulnerable spaces. In other words, this legislation prohibits government entities from creating predator-friendly environments. The recently reported Kansas City International Airport incident, where more than 60 women were videoed in stalls at the airport's all-gender restrooms, underlined the real-life impact for women in vulnerable situations. The KCI policy created a perpetrator-friendly environment, resulting in the creation of pornography of more than 60 women who just believed they were taking a quick restroom stop at the airport. This man was able to perpetrate over 60 times before finally a woman either had the courage to speak up or noticed what was happening. Additionally, our schools are asking for clarity on this issue as they're working to navigate how to protect safety for students. So that's the summary of the bill, and I'm open to any questions.
I appreciate it. When you go back to the airport situation,
Sure.
and talk to me a little bit about how the women knew, how did they find out that was
So the
happening?
woman saw a phone that had been slid under the stall wall and realized that it was filming her, and she started screaming, and then that began the investigation.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. All right, anyone here to testify? Can I just get a show of hands of people who are here to testify in favor? Thank you. Can you check outside, see if there's anybody? Anyone here to testify for informational purposes? Show of hands, please. Anyone here to testify in opposition? All right, thank you. We'll go ahead and limit, let's go ahead and start with people in opposition. We're going to go ahead and start with people who are testifying. Okay. In opposition, we have the room. I think we should be okay. Just be mindful of time. We have to be out of here by 10 o'clock. If it looks like we're not going to have enough time, and I'm going to have to start restricting testimony time, okay? So just be brief and concise, and that'll help us to be able to not put that time restraint on. All right. Correct. Make sure you fill out a witness form also and leave it on the table just as a housekeeping item. Perfect. Thank you. Begin when you're ready. Push the green
It is
button.
now.
There
Thank
go.
you. I'm Michael Walk from St. Louis County. I'm the father of a transgender daughter, and I'm here to speak out against HB2536. The rights of transgender Americans are under attack. Bills like this one cause harm to this community, which has been targeted over and over in recent years. Transgender people are often misunderstood. Nearly everyone in the U.S. has met transgender people, but many are unaware of the fact. Transgender people throughout history have had to hide their identity to be safe, and many still do. In recent decades, responsible research has shown that allowing transgender people to live according to their gender identities helps them flourish as individuals and as members of society. This includes using restrooms designated for the gender they live with. There are no ill effects from this reality. But what if there were a law requiring them not to use such a bathroom? Please consider this well because it's important. If my daughter were to enter a men's room, it would create a stir. She is a lovely young lady, and yet she would be required to use the wrong bathroom based on her sex as defined in this bill. She would immediately attract attention, and it would be obvious why. Given the hypersexualization many people project on transgender people, there would be very obvious risks to her personal safety. And what would be the point of all this? She poses no danger to anyone when she enters a stall to relieve herself. She is not there to do anything unusual or immoral. What possible purpose is served by putting my sweet and lovely young girl in harm's way?
Thank you.
This bill solves no real problem. There are already laws about creating pornography, but it will jeopardize the health and safety of trans kids. By voting against HB 2536, you will not only be protecting transgender Missourians, you will also be sending a message that the state of Missouri is done with grandstanding and divisiveness, and that it's time to start solving real problems. Please do not pass this bill. Representative Laubinger has mentioned that it is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and I would like to point out that transgender people are many times more likely to be victims of sexual assault. This will put them in greater danger of being victims of sexual assault. Please vote against this bill.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Just leave it there on the desk, and then we'll next in opposition.
Good morning, Senators, Madam Chairwoman. I took time away from work this morning so that I can come and speak about an issue that I care deeply about. That's the type of Missouri that we're building for one another. I'm a hardworking professional from Columbia, Missouri. I'm regulated in the state of Missouri under the healthcare umbrella. Now, most of my clients are female, and I regularly intuit and navigate my clients' privacy and sensitivity needs through professionalism and neighborliness, not through the threat of litigation. I work closely with the public every day. And as a professional with my reputation built on trust, comfort, and expertise, my work succeeds because my clients feel safe, respected, and at ease. People from my church might describe me as kind and dependable. My friends would describe me as someone who loves her cat, fabric arts, and always has more book recommendations than somebody can reasonably read. My coworkers know me as knowledgeable and hardworking. And one inconsequential detail about me and my life is that I am transgender. I know most of the people in my life also know this fact, and they know this because I live and work honestly, because I'm proud of the person that I have become, and I treat others with dignity. So, I have been living openly as a transgender woman for nearly 20 years, and for this time, if there's not a single stall, individual bathroom available, which I prefer, and I believe a lot of people would prefer, that's real privacy. If such a stall doesn't exist, I use the women's room. I've been doing this for 20 years of my life. And in all this time, not one woman has told me that my presence makes her feel unsafe. I also wonder, what would I do if HB 2536 is signed into law? What would that mean for me, and what restroom would I have to use? How would people respond to that? What consequences would that have? Just like the women who have seen me in the restroom for the last 20 years, I know that Missourians know how to be good neighbors. We know how to mind our business, we show courtesy, and we share public space with one another. We don't need the government fostering suspicion where common decency has worked just fine. And as history teaches us, when fear about certain people and certain bodies gets written into the law, these laws rarely age well. This bill claims to be about protecting women. Meanwhile, though, Missouri women face real concerns: maternal health, economic opportunity, domestic violence, which almost always happens in the home with somebody known to them, not strangers in bathrooms. These issues deserve this body's attention, rather than something that invites litigiousness about an issue that very few, if any, people will ever experience. This bill finally, so getting to the bottom of it, this bill creates an environment of suspicion about bodies, about what organs you have, and creates a path for litigation against business owners and workers who are not trained or qualified or are not in business to police what body somebody has or what restroom somebody has. The safety and comfort of women is a top priority of mine. HB 2536 does not do that. It replaces neighborliness with litigiousness. And that's why I ask the members of this committee to vote no on HB 2536.
Thank you for your testimony. Make sure you fill out a witness form and.
I have it here. Should I leave it?
Yes, leave it right there on the
Thank
table.
you. And my,
Okay, you may do
thank you
that.
so much.
Thank you. Next in opposition.
Good morning to the committee and Madam Chairwoman. My name is Samantha Jones. I'm a Missourian and a taxpayer, and I'm here today opposed to HB 2536. First, the title of this bill proposes that it will protect women. Then it sets out to define what a woman is versus a man in an attempt to try to encapsulate possibilities for intersexuality. The definitions boils down to a person who is supposed to have or does use eggs to reproduce. I'm assuming you mean the ova, that is the gamete produced in the ovaries. Madam Chair, my question to you is, do you believe that the entirety of your femininity, your womanhood, is defined by the gamete that you produce? And if you do believe that, are you willing to define that as a woman that way for every Missourian? This bill text, if it becomes the statute, based on the bill text, then every Missourian would need to undergo expensive and extensive genetic testing to make sure that they are not an intersex person who is supposed to have produced ova. This means people already assigned male at birth would have to change their birth certificates and have them amended to be compliant with the new definition. It also means that parents to new children will have to pay for the genetic testing after their child is born and have to wait up to several weeks for the results before setting on a name, filing a birth certificate, and painting a child's room. An uptick in names that are gender neutral will be on the rise, and pink and blue will go out of fashion, as will gender neutral restrooms and gender reveal parties. Are you willing to force parents to do this, wait on their child to determine which restroom or locker room they will use in the future? What about people with this testing that are going to be ambiguous still? Will there be an option for an I or an X on the birth certificate to indicate this? And also, as a woman assigned at birth and generally using women's spaces as they are often cleaner and more safe, I am appalled at the amount of exceptions of cis men allowed in these spaces, men who previously could not enter, such as male coaches, in locker rooms. Coaches are notorious for sexual abuse. This makes me more concerned for the safety of women than I was before this and will be if it passes. I'd like to close on the fact that it is a biological fact that human genetic expression is so varied that each person could be assigned an individual sex at birth. We use arbitrary boxes to define this for convenience. And cultures all over the world see this variation and often make up to 7 or 8 distinct gender assignments. And often those that are not man or woman are considered something more, sacred beings and people that provide religious and cultural functions. And it is my sincerely held belief that humans are more than the gametes they produce, and that gender and sex are a single part of the human experience, and that gender transcends the body and mind of an individual. Thank you for your time today, and I hope that these questions and considerations and concerns are carefully examined, and that you do not pass this bill as it harms all Missourians.
Thank you for your testimony. Make sure you fill out a witness form and leave it there on the desk so we can submit it for the record. Next, in opposition. Just again, being mindful of the time of testimony so that we don't have to limit others who may come behind you.
There we go. Hello, my name is Nicholas Tatum. I am known as Verity. I am the chair advocate for Intact Intersex Non-Binary Trans Advocate Collective Triangle. I am in opposition to Bill HB2536. It is an incorrect assumption that gender is rigidly binary and that sex is as well. It would be difficult to enforce this rule without having people forced to expose their genitalia for others to inspect or determine which restroom and locker room a person would need to use. This not only excludes transgender, non-binary, and intersex people, or people with ambiguous genitalia, people who have hermaphroditic genetic phenotype, people in a form of blatant cruelty and discrimination. This would also cause intersex people to have like a serious quandary on where they're going to be able to use the restroom. Everyone wants a safe place to use the restroom and change clothes without harassment, and this bill is lazily written. It lacks scientific support and harms Missourians. This will cost Missouri revenue and does nothing to make women more safe in these environments. And we have proof of this. The state of Texas is currently losing $3.3 billion annually because of their trans ban on bathrooms. And, as a veteran, I know that we could do more for veterans' health here in the state of Missouri. What upsets me about moving in this direction is that we will end up losing access to some of that funding that could be going towards veterans' homes. The state of Missouri spends $150 million annually on 7 veterans' homes, just 7. We would be losing $3.3 billion maybe annually, and we could just turn that money around and we could do something with it. Trans people are not going into restrooms to assault anyone. I mean, we don't have good, solid proof that this is happening at such a rate that we need to be passing a law that would regulate whether somebody can go and use the restroom. The section that reads female, an individual who naturally has had, will, or would have, before developmental or genetic anomaly or historical accident, the reproductive system that at some point produces, transports, and utilizes eggs for fertilization. Well, I have news for everybody. We're getting closer to being able to transplant a uterus in trans bodies. And at that point, we're a hop, skip, and a jump away from being able to have trans women have babies in real time. And that would be amazing. I know in my case, that would be wonderful because my partner, she can't give birth. But if I had that opportunity to do that, that would be wonderful for 2 reasons. Because if this bill gets passed, by the wording in the bill, I would be considered female at that point because I have the ability to reproduce. Does that make me any less or more able of assaulting someone in a restroom? No. It doesn't make me more capable of assaulting somebody for being trans. What I was born with, another part of this bill, when we start talking about birth defects, what I was born with was a birth defect. I was born in the wrong body type. So then by that section of the bill, am I now considered a female by the state of Missouri? So I'm hoping that we take the time to really consider what we're trying to do here to the state, to people that live within our state, to the people that are already exiting our state. Because I know they're all going towards Illinois right now. So let's try to prevent that. Thank you. Please vote no on this bill.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, in opposition.
Good morning, Senators. My name is Jen Harper. I'm the parent of a transgender child. I've dedicated the last 23 years of my professional career in service to the people of Missouri. I used to take great pride in this. Now it feels gross to go to work and serve people who would rather my child be dead than to exist. And you know what? I am tired. I am tired of people using God to justify hate and discrimination. I am tired of being afraid for my child's safety, which decreases every time a bill like this is introduced. I am tired of you making laws about things you don't even understand. I'm tired of coming here and hearing a senator compare my child's existence to sex-changing cows. It happened. I am tired of people who claim to love God and Jesus work to make my child's life a living hell. I am tired of you all wasting taxpayer dollars on this type of crap when our schools are still being underfunded and our healthcare system is on the verge of collapse. I am tired of using my vacation time from work to come here and pour out my heart, and you never listen. There's 2 of 5 of you here. I am tired of using my child's existence as a pawn to score points with the uninformed and ignorant. I am tired of begging for my child's dignity and right to exist. I am tired. The reason this agenda works is because women are so afraid of men, and this is easier for you to do than actually fix the problem of men's violence against women. It's time for all of you to do the work to understand, because I'm tired.
Thank you for your testimony. Make sure you leave a witness form on the table. Very good. All right, next in opposition.
Sure. Sorry about that.
ready when you're ready.
Good morning, Madam Chairwoman. My name is Keith Rose. I'm from St. Louis. I'm with the Center for Growing Justice. We're a nonprofit legal services organization. We represent a lot of people as they do paperwork to change their name and sometimes their legal sex, either here or in Illinois or various places. And I have to say, I am rather concerned about this bill. I don't understand how it made it through perfection on the other side of the building, because what it has done is created a situation where we seem to have a Trojan horse. All of the conversation we've been hearing is about bathrooms and restrictions there, but what this bill actually aims to do, and I believe the outside interests who wrote it intended this to do so, is it redefines sex in all levels of Missouri's law throughout all of our chapters by changing the base definition of sex and inserting definitions of male and female. And in so doing, what it does is incorporate a whole bunch of other things that this body and the House has considered this year and in previous years, and none of them are even coming up for discussion. So, for example, if this bill were to pass, it would have the same effect as the Senate Bill 934, which changes the way that birth certificates can or cannot be amended. Now, that's a bill that hasn't been passed by the chamber, but in passing this, you would have the exact same implications. This bill would also prevent people who are transgender for having the proper, even people who've had surgery, having the proper sex reflected on their death certificates. So what this bill would do is it would deprive people the dignity of being buried under the sex that they have lived their entire lives, even people who are intersex. This bill would further have the same effects of House Bill 2076, which itself does have a fiscal note, even though that's not reflected here, and that would prevent people from having accurate gender identities on their Missouri DOR driver's license or state IDs. Now, we know that DOR has told Representative Phelps, whenever he put that bill in front of them, that it would have a cost and have a fiscal note, but that's not reflected here. So what we're looking at is this grand change of Missouri statute, and it's being hidden under this bathroom panic that we're seeing spread around the country. And I'm really concerned that we're going to end up in the same situation as our neighbor Kansas did this past year, where a very similar bill was passed into law, and it caused chaos in all of the different departments as they tried to implement it without any notice. Now, that led to a whole lot of changes back and forth, very troubling times for Kansas residents and people born in Kansas who might even live in Missouri today. And it caused many costly lawsuits against the state that are still ongoing, but much of which have been successful. So I am concerned that by not taking deeper scrutiny into this law and what it actually does with changing these base definitions, we might be opening up a whole can of worms that we're not prepared for.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your time. Next in opposition.
Hi. My name is Stevie Miller. I'm from West Plains, Missouri. I'm a non-binary trans man, chairman of my local Pride Committee, and an LGBTQIA advocate. I oppose HB 2536, and I ask the committee to stop humoring bigotry like this. This is not in the interest of keeping children or women safe. This is in the interest of serving an agenda that Trump spent $29 million producing propaganda for. $29 million went into ad campaigns that claim trans women are harmful to women on sports teams, in locker rooms, and in bathrooms. Look at how much is being wasted in time and resources here. Now, do we want to care about facts, or are we dedicated to feelings? This guise of cleaning up language for legal purposes is only to draw lines of who is welcome in spaces and who is not, and often those labels exclude those they aim to protect. This does not keep anyone safe. It just isolates people divided up by sex and gender, ultimately reinforcing one thing, that men, cis men, are dangerous. Instead of addressing those mental health issues that might lead these men to being dangerous, we're sitting here claiming that trans women are those dangerous men. And claiming trans women are those dangerous men is media fantasy that is brought about by the Hays Code and the cool aforementioned 29 million right there in propaganda. Trans women are women, and excluding them from safety does not create safety for cis women. It creates a witch hunt. Everyone now thinks someone has a penis under their skirt and will rape them with it in the bathroom. Everyone in the room must look like a woman, but to whose standards? And as always, how are we checking? And why are we reducing people down to their sex organs? Make no mistake, this is state-sanctioned bullying. Presentation is not always gender, and neither of those are sex. To claim you can know someone's sex by looking at their face is overconfident at best. We do have an average, mean, median, and mode, all that, but even that binary of male and female that we cling to here does not contain everyone. Intersex folks are 1% of the population and overlooked to punish trans, NB, and gender nonconforming folk, and are likewise punished. Quickly, the God made you this way argument is abandoned for intersex, for it hinges on God made man and woman. But did he not make everyone and thus intersex folks? As he made night and day, did he not make sunset, twilight, and dusk? Would you call high noon more day than 9 a.m.? Also, would 9 p.m. qualify? Like, what would qualify as day? Is it sun? Because 9 p.m. Is night, but it could be day in the summer. Will you likewise semantic me out of existence? Because you can pass a bill saying, oh, you can't exist that way there, when I'm clearly here doing so and in thriving. Would you, not knowing me from Adam on site, have me in the women's restroom? This bill would, and I guarantee you someone's husband, boyfriend, brother is pulling me out and beating me up without checking my genitals after seeing me follow their loved one in. This opens me up for attack, and that's one person too many. Nothing in life is black and white, and those of us that live in the shades of gray are tired of pretending we aren't real or like we're some problem to be solved. There are more statistics and studies that prove trans women and trans men are more at risk of an attack in any bathroom setting. Next, Benedict lost their life using the girls' restroom where they were supposed to, and they were beaten by their peers for it. Those girls harming them in there led to their suicide. Where is the outrage for the 46% of trans youth that consider suicide, the 49% of queer youth that experience bullying? Y'all are too busy contributing to the problem. 91% of queer youth have mental health tanks over bills like this. You are depriving them of a future. But that is the end goal, to eradicate us entirely, as there are concurrent bills aimed at our gender-affirming care and having us in any other space and sports everywhere. This is one of many bills occupying valuable time that we could be discussing real issues actually affecting Missouri families. The language of this bill also has ridiculous boundaries that mention sleeping quarters. And the way that kind of has that no opposite sex person in your dorm room unless they are maintenance or inspecting. When I was in college at MSU Springfield, I hung out with all my friends in their dorm rooms. We studied late at night. We did all that stuff. We asked our roommates if we could do that because we're respectful. And yeah, we had mixed company. We could not do that. That camaraderie is gone with this. Anyway, I'm tired of asking nicely for you guys to leave me and my people alone. I'll keep coming up here to advocate for women and children and trans people to people who are supposed to know better than this and would yet like to use us, as pawns. If you want common sense to be the law of the land, let's quit micromanaging bathrooms and have the common sense to leave people alone in private areas. Teach consent and bodily autonomy and stop wasting tax money on control. Thank you.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none. I want to just bring you up to speed on some of the chatter that's been occurring up here on the dais. We do not have a quorum established, and so therefore we're trying to make sure that this is official so that we don't have to repeat this. So just as a way of courtesy, I wanted to bring you up to speed on what's going on so that you didn't think we were talking about something else. We're just trying to establish a quorum, so thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Next, in opposition. Can I get a show of hands of how many people are here in opposition still to testify? Okay, thank you. Begin when you're ready.
Good morning. My name is Cammy Storm, and I'm here to ask you to vote no on HB 2536. HB 2536 is presented as a single policy change, and the record shows it's not. It does four things simultaneously. First, it amends Missouri's general statutory definitions on sex, defines as male and female broadly across the state. It ignores what the medical community and psychological community knows gender and sex to be. Secondly, it mandates sex-based access restrictions for restrooms, changing rooms, and sleeping quarters across covered entities, including schools, public buildings, and correctional facilities. Third, it creates private right action, allowing lawsuits against those entities, including attorney's fees and costs, which will cause bankruptcy. Small places that have government ties no longer will be able to afford to have access to those government ties. And fourth, it removes the 2027 sunset on current athletic restrictions, making them permanent, which y'all throw into every bill that comes across, so it's no surprise that that's in there. Those are the mechanisms. Now let's talk about the impacts. Using your own documents, have you even looked at the fiscal notes on this? What the damage will be to this state? The Department of Corrections says it's unclear how DOC will determine a person's sex, and that this bill poses several significant challenges, yet you ignored that. It further states that its monetary impact will be unknown, but yearly they expect it'll be about $250,000 more than what they spend now. That's our money that you're just throwing away. Are you really going to pass it and just give our money away while you're telling us that you can't feed school kids lunch? Seriously? The fiscal note also defines that approximately 7,522 employees could be impacted. You're just going to fire people, tell them they don't have a right to work? Just get out of Missouri? Is that the plan? To the members who intend to move this forward, this is not narrow facilities policy. It is a statewide definitional change paired with enforcement mechanisms driven by litigation with acknowledged operational and fiscal consequences. Those are the elements on record. Please vote no for this irresponsible bill. Can the party of fiscal responsibility to even pass this far is completely irresponsible. And I don't understand why we're even sitting here but talking about this today, but here we are. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Again, just make sure you leave your witness form. Next, in opposition.
All right, members of the committee, my name is Amelia Stoffer. I'm a citizen of the state and a resident of the city of Springfield, Missouri. My testimony today is in opposition to HB 2536. Community is one of the most important indicators of human health. I am sure you know that, as health is the committee we're at today. This bill seeks to take away community permanently from youth and young adults because of a need to control narratives. I invite you all to stop doing this. I invite you to imagine a time when you were young. I invite you to imagine a time where you did not have the autonomy to immediately go to a bathroom space to relieve yourself. I ask you to remember the pain of trying to hold in this absolutely natural and human need to relieve your bladders. I invite you to remember perhaps a moment where you had no choice but to let nature take its course, the embarrassment, the shame. Vote against this bill if you have any capacity for compassion toward other humans. I genuinely hope God is kinder to you on Judgment Day than you have been to trans people today.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? Seeing none. Next, in opposition.
Good morning. I'm Allie Wright. I'd like to thank this body for accepting my testimony this morning. I intend to be brief. I am speaking in opposition to HB 2536. I am a transgender woman, and I am a lifelong Missourian. I was born in St. Louis. I was raised in Poplar Bluff. I spent 13 years in Springfield and the last 7 in Columbia. I did door knocking in Springfield for a campaign to fight bathroom bills a decade ago. And I came out to many people. I shared my life story with them, and I know the old talking point of keeping people safe from men who might pretend to be trans to gain access to a bathroom. A lot of trans people have come out in the last 10 years, and based on all of these bills I would expect to see an epidemic of men trying to pretend to be trans to gain access. Instead, it is trans people, and especially transgender women whose safety is put at risk. And I do mean safety, because far from committing crimes in bathrooms, trans people are much, much more likely to be the victims of sexual assault. And like many other women, I have been sexually assaulted. If this bill were to pass, I would have to choose every day between going into a space where my risk, my chance of being assaulted increase, or going into a space where my chances of being arrested increase. A hypothetical man pretending to be transgender does not face these fears or these hurdles. And in fact, if this bill were to pass, it would force transgender men who were assigned female at birth, but many of whom are indistinguishable from any other man, to use the women's restroom. It would force me to choose whether to use the men's room, where I am, again, highly at risk of sexual assault, or to literally break the law by using the women's. It would put every woman in this room and in this state under increased scrutiny from anyone who might think they look a little too masculine or who might just have an axe to grind. I implore the Missouri legislature not to pass this bill, as it helps no one and harms many trans people who, like myself, like I said, are lifelong Missourians. Please work on legislation that can help the many rather than bills which serve only to harm the minority. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Next in opposition.
Hello. My name's Keith Brown, but my name changed pending, so legally I'm still Kathleen Brown, but semantics. I'm a transgender man. I was born on an Air Force base, for 10 years of my life I was spent around moving as a child, moving around as a child. And I spent 10 years, the last 10 years, studying and of gender affirming care and the refutal of sexual dimorphism. I spent the last 3.5 years transitioning and 2 years in advocacy. In those 10 years of studies, I've learned so much more about how intersex people and how they exist, how 1 in 200 to 1 in 1,000 births, that can be anywhere between redheads to freckles, are born with intersex characteristics, and they can legally mutilate newborn babies and to fit those arbitrary terms of male or female. They are allowed to by claiming cancer, claiming all these other scientific possibilities, yes, but they can and they will and they do. Today, I spent well more money on gas than I usually do, just to be here. I spent $200 on tires, and I'm legally disabled. I sat there filling my gas tank this morning, wondering, why is this still an issue? Why are we talking about this? Oh, this is to distract everyone. This is to distract people from the war, from the gas prices, from the $3.8 billion a year we spend on Israel. We're playing conservative. And it doesn't make any sense, because it never will make sense. It wasn't about bathrooms in 1865, when the movements to deny black Americans their right to integrated schools forced them segregated, felonized, criminalized children from going to school. It wasn't about religious truth or bathrooms, but fear of power and their money and of other human beings, using the Bible as a shield and their money as a weapon to subjugate an entire people and rid them of their autonomy. These violations to civil rights did not happen overnight. Mike Brown, Trayvon, I've been saying their names for 10 years, and there are countless millions more lost to America, willfully blind of its history, just like our trans community. I urge you to look at the science, to look at the numbers. Do you want to be that name like in 1865? People signing away the lives of not able to use a water fountain, a bathroom? Are you going to do that to trans people today? Or do you want your name in history like that? That's your choice. Any questions?
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank
Make
you.
sure you leave your witness form on the table.
Absolutely. Have a lovely day.
Next, in opposition.
Excuse me. I'm Jennifer Pepper from St. Charles, here to oppose House Bill 2536. You can see me. You can hear me. You can see how I'm perceived in the world. HB 2536 legally declares me male. It obligates the state to exclude me from women's spaces. It allows anyone to sue if they believe I used the wrong restroom. And it doesn't stop there. It affects how I would be treated across state systems, including interactions with law enforcement and placement in detention. For someone like me, that raises serious safety concerns. I am also a sexual assault survivor. So I have a practical question. What is supposed to happen when I walk into a women's restroom? And if I try to follow the law and use a men's restroom, what is supposed to happen then? How is a staff member supposed to determine where I'm supposed to go? If someone challenges my presence, how does that play out in real time? What will that look like? What will the headlines say? This bill puts the state in an impossible position. It is not workable. This bill is not ready. It should not move forward in its current form. I ask that you vote no on HB 2536. And thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you again. Next in opposition. Just by a show of hands, how many more people are here to testify in opposition? All right, thank you. Begin when you're ready.
Good morning. I'm David Lee Brush with the Missouri Equity Education Partnership. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I can't speak any more eloquently than the people before me have because they have lived experience that I don't. I'm a cisgendered heterosexual ally. I didn't really know what that meant in my life, but I am learning. And one of the things about this bill that has been bothering me since the House hearing is that when we were really concerned about enforcement, how is this going to happen? If you do not present as stereotypically feminine or not feminine enough or not masculine enough, that somebody raises a question, how is this bill going to be enforced? And one of the other representatives that was presenting in that suite of bills in the House said, well, if nobody notices, it's not a big deal. Well, then you're not really protecting anybody because you're saying you're not protected if you don't get caught. My sister would call this security theater. It's not making anybody any more safe because it's going strictly on appearances. And the points that have been brought up about enforcement, about the fiscal note, about a lot of things has really made me think the last few weeks. I'm of an age where I use the bathroom a lot. And I don't have to think about where I go to the restroom. But I was at the Fox Theater a couple of weeks ago seeing Bat Out of Hell, and I use a cane from time to time because I broke my leg 10 years ago. And I had my cane that night, so I was using the accessibility bathroom on the main floor. It is a suite of rooms that is multi-gender, and there are private doors, but you're still in this space where men and women are cohabiting together in this space, and there's an attendant most of the time, but sometimes there's not. And I looked around and I thought, is the Fox going to have to change their bathrooms? They're not a public space, but they have public restrooms, and how long will it be before this is extended? What's that going to do to these places? And am I any less safe there than I am other places? The answer is no. And I realized I really don't have to think about my safety when I use the bathroom. I met a non-binary young person on a trip last summer at the Corn Palace in South Dakota, and they came to me about 10 minutes after a small conversation. A 22-year-old full-grown adult human said, I think by your shirt that you're a safe person. Would you mind coming to the bathroom with me? Because I want to be safe. And I said, I will 100% do that for you. I did not ask for a driver's license. I did not ask for a genital check because you know what? It's none of my dadgum business. They went into the bathroom, they did their business, they washed their hands, they gave me a hug, and they went on their way. How traumatic and humiliating that poor young person named Zephyr must have felt approaching a total stranger, hoping that that stranger would be kind and compassionate and, most important, safe. The thing that bothers me about this bill the most is that it's putting lie to the name. It is not about protecting women and girls. It is going to open up women and girls to more threats
by the enforcement mechanism, because it is going to give license to men who will actually do harm to women to be able to say, I'm sorry, I have to check to see if you're really a girl to go in there. And the bathroom issue in Kansas City had nothing to do with it being multigender. There have been cameras placed in women's restrooms over time all over the country. There was a very famous case in St. Louis many years ago about that, and it was a single gender bathroom. They're using a red herring or a Trojan, whatever, pick a metaphor, to be able to make this happen. And as a sexual assault survivor, cisgendered heterosexual, I am very offended that you are using things that happen no matter where we are by cisgendered men to use this bill to harm people. Take my name and my life, my sexual assault experience off your bill and stop using it to hurt people. Please stop hurting the transgender community. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions for the witness?
Oh, sorry.
Seeing none, thank you. Next in opposition.
Hi, my name is Scott Hammock. I'm opposed to HB 2536. With changes in definition, I feel this legislation is intended to legislate trans people out of existence. Instead of having legislation spoon-fed from Washington, D.C. think tanks, we should have Missouri residents should be have ideas brought forth that affect Missourians and not some other organization. And I urge you to vote no on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you again for your time. Anyone else here to testify in opposition?
Hello, I'm Susan Renee Carter. I'm from Boone County, Columbia, Missouri, and I'm testifying against Bill 2536 as it denies access of persons who do not meet your narrow definition of a woman to public places. This law not only hurts everyone who might want public access, but it especially hurts those who are intersex, non-binary, and trans. Biologically, the definition of female and male is much more complicated than your social or cultural definitions. Pretending otherwise is naive. Implementing this law will bring violence to those who do not fit your narrow definition. That violence will play out in how our intersex, non-binary, and trans community members are treated. But that violence also plays out in the mental health distress that this kind of legislation breeds in our world. People deserve better. They deserve respect and acceptance. This legislative body should stop spreading hate and should start acting in a way that they purport to be. To address the claims about women's safety, more harm is done by cisgender men to women than any of those. But more importantly, more harm is done to intersex, non-binary, and trans people than the danger they pose to women. Secondly, women do not need you to decide how or when they need to be protected. We are fully capable of deciding that ourselves. Third, dangers to children in athletics or worries about competition. Those fears have been founded lacking, and children are more in danger from bullies in schools and in those situations than they are from intersex, non-binary, or trans people. Likewise, the sports advantages have not been proven. I'm asking you to vote no because this bill is a violent bill against people who deserve no harm. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you. Anyone else here to testify in opposition? All right, that concludes the opposition testimony. Next, those in favor?
Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. My name is Sarah Beth Nolan, and I serve as legal counsel with Alliance Defending Freedom. Women and young girls deserve to have their privacy, dignity, and safety protected in intimate spaces. And as the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg explained, quote, separate places to disrobe, sleep, and perform personal bodily functions are permitted, and in some situations required by regard for individual privacy, end quote. No one should be forced to expose themselves or be exposed to the opposite sex in an intimate setting without their consent. Policies that allow males to invade female private spaces violate women's dignity and subject them to harassment and abuse. Take the case of Jane Doe in Loudoun County, Virginia, a 15-year-old girl brutally sexually assaulted by a male student in the girls' restroom at her high school. Or our client, Adelia Cross, who was forced to share a locker room with a male who would continuously whisper vulgar comments in her ear before practice. Or another client, the Wales family from Colorado, whose middle school daughter was assigned to share a bed with a male student on a school field trip without her knowledge or consent or her parents' consent. These experiences are just a few in an alarmingly growing number of reports across the country where girls are being involuntarily exposed to males while in private, vulnerable spaces. Girls deserve to go to school and get their education without sacrificing their safety and well-being. This bill requires that public schools and public institutions of higher learning designate multi-occupancy, restrooms, changing rooms, and overnight sleeping quarters for use by one sex. It also ensures protection for young girls in juvenile detention centers and vulnerable women in domestic abuse shelters and correctional facilities by requiring sex-separated spaces. This bill provides a legal remedy against a government facility that grants an individual permission to use the multi-occupancy space designated for the opposite sex, or fails to take reasonable steps to provide privacy for both sexes in their respective spaces. Though facilities are welcome under the bill to maintain single-user spaces so that anyone, for any reason, can have a private space to use. 9 other states have passed similar legislation, and 19 total protect women's spaces. The 11th and 9th Circuits, as well as federal courts and the 6th and the 10th Circuits, have all upheld similar laws and policies separating intimate spaces by sex. This language is constitutionally sound, workable, and protects the privacy and safety of all women across the state. And I'd like to, just for a moment, address a few comments and questions that have come up thus far about the function of the bill. The cause of action is against the state or the public entity, not private businesses and not individuals themselves. It is, when addressing sleeping quarters, the language of the bill is that if the state requires a woman to stay with a man overnight or vice versa. Not if someone chooses to do so voluntarily, but if they are assigned by a state entity to do so. As far as the definitions that have been brought up, the first thing that you'll notice is that the definition of a woman says an individual who naturally has. So an artificial womb does not make a man a woman under the definitions of this bill. Sex is declared by a physician at birth, and if someone has a disorder of sexual development, or also known as an intersex condition, the physician takes the proper testing to make that evaluation. And this bill does not get in the way of those, but those individuals are still male or female, but they have a disorder, and that should be addressed. This bill has no mention of identity, not a mention of stereotypes or how someone chooses to dress or cut their hair, or any of those things, but rather it talks about sex. And those are 2 very different categories and 2 very different subjects. Women can choose to cut their hair however they'd like, or wear pants or a skirt, but still they are a woman. A woman who has had breast cancer and a woman who is not, still a woman. That is still her womanhood. And the final thing I will say before I'll take questions is we have known what a woman is for a very long time. We knew what a woman was when we got the right to vote, when we got the right to have our own bank accounts, when we nominated one to the Supreme Court for the very first time. And this bill protects all women just like that. I'm happy to stand for questions.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Next, in favor. Oh, yep. Can we establish, we're going to pause in testimony and establish quorum. Thank you. Blake, will you establish quorum?
Senator Carter.
Here.
Senator Lewis. Senator Hudson.
Here.
Senator Nirenberg. Senator Nicola. Senator O'Laughlin.
Here.
Senator Laubinger. Quorum is established.
Thank you. Quorum being established, we will continue with testimony in favor. Next, testimony in favor.
Good morning, Senator Carter is a member of the committee. My name is Chandra Hendren, and I represent Heritage Action, a national grassroots organization with conservative activists nationwide, including many Missourians. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of HB 2536. We appreciate Representative Laubinger bringing forward this bill. HB 2536 establishes clear and consistent biological definitions of male and female to enshrine safe boundaries for private spaces and activities designated for girls and for women. Clearly defining male and female in law matters to protect the legal rights of girls and women to sex-separated sports and scholarships, sex-separated restrooms, locker and dorm rooms, prisons, and shelters for victims of sexual assault, and protects the objective difference between males and females, mothers and fathers. Women and girls in Missouri want safety and privacy. We want to ensure that students do not share sleeping quarters with members of the opposite sex during school-authorized activities, and we want separate locker rooms separated by sex, women-only athletic opportunities for scholarships, and the emotional and physical protection of women-only shelters for victims of sexual assault and other sex-separated facilities and opportunities. Women have fought hard for generations to achieve equal rights and opportunities, and we need precise, non-arbitrary legal criteria that distinguishes males from females. Missouri needs to be able to protect women and girls both emotionally and physically. By securing the legal definition of the sexes that is male and female in biology rather than gender identity. Every woman and girl in the state deserves to know that in Missouri her privacy and rights are protected, and I urge you to support HB 2536. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you again. Anyone else here to testify in favor?
Good morning, Madam Chair, Committee. I'm Dr. Guillermo Villatrueva with the Missouri Catholic Conference, and we would like to go on the record in support of House Bill 2536. This bill establishes clear definitions of male and female grounded in biology and a sound understanding of human nature, and protects safety and privacy in sex-specific spaces that by their nature should not be shared with members of the opposite sex. In addition, this measure helps preserve fairness and safety for female athletes participating in interscholastic sports and ensuring that these standards remain the norm in Missouri. The previous witness had already mentioned the specifics of the bill. I would just like to highlight that this bill does not only address this restroom, but it also deals with changing facilities and sleeping quarters, which are very important due to issues of risk and vulnerability for both men and women. So we would like to urge you to vote do pass on this bill, and if you have any questions, I'll be glad to take them. Thank you.
All right, any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you again for your testimony. Anyone else here to testify in favor of the bill?
Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. I'm so old and been around here so long, I remember when this was an ugly room, a hearing room, but you could still get to the table a lot easier than you can now. But anyway, thank you, Representative Laubinger, for sponsoring this bill. I know it's been very, very difficult because I was just going to go on record. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Bev Valen with Liberty Link, Missouri. And I was just going to go on record in support of this bill because all those that have gone before me, both against and for, have said pretty much everything. So I probably should go ahead and just go on record. However, I have a little bit of history behind me because I realized that for the first couple hundred years of our history in America, our laws, our statutes were based on God's principles. And because God's principles work for the believer and the unbeliever. And about 80 years ago, we started pulling away from God's standard, his principle. And now we have chaos. We had sexual revolution that was brought by a change in law, not a change in behavior. The behavior changed when the law changed. And I remember back in the 90s, I'd come up to testify on a bill, and we had stickers that said purity, not promiscuity. And people would look at that and say, what does that mean? And I said, well, God's standard for sexual activity is in a marriage between a man and a woman. Anything outside of that brings dysfunction, disease, and death. And the further we go against God's standard, against the principles that have been set up that work, the more chaos we're experiencing. I think that's it. That's all I'm going to say.
All right, thank you for your testimony. Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your time. Anyone else here to testify in favor of the bill? How many more, just a show of hands, are here to testify in favor? Anyone here to testify for informational purposes? All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman, members of the committee. My name is Arnie C., AC Dinoff, State Public Advocate. I submitted my online form on the Senate portal a few days ago. I also filled a written copy of my witness form. Where to begin? You know, this should not be a complicated bill. It should be a very simple bill. This is about the protection of women and also the protection of men. On March 2nd of this year, I testified in the House Committee on Emerging Issues in support of HCS HB2536. The use of sex-designated areas and restrooms. I believe that if you're born with male parts, you should use a male restroom. And I also feel that if you're born with women parts, you should use a woman's restroom. I want my rights to be protected. I've been shocked a number of times, not only in this building, but in other areas across the state and in my own community. The state needs to protect both women and men. This legislation is setting clear definitions and great public boundaries by protecting all children, all families, all women, and all men. This bill protects children in public institutions and correction facilities, in schools, sports teams, locker rooms, public restrooms, showers, public park areas, camping sites where there's community shower houses, which has men's and women's shower areas. And it also protects all school activities. You know, it seems like a lot of hoopla and a lot of people that are making a mound out of a molehill. And it's a very simple bill. And that's to protect my rights and the rights of women and men equally. As I said, the bottom line is, if you're born into this world with male parts, you use a male restroom. If you're born into this world with women parts, you use a woman's restroom. I highly support HCS HB2536. Let's get this on the governor's desk. This is a must-do. We need to protect all citizens of Missouri. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you. Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, appreciate your testimony. Thank you. Just one more, just to make sure. Anyone else here to testify in favor? Anyone else here to testify for informational purposes? All right, that concludes the hearing for House Bill 2536. Any closing comments, Representative?
Just real quick, I want to thank everyone who's testified both in favor and against. I'm glad to hear from everyone. I did just want to address real quick the whole open facility concept, such as the one we have at the Kansas City Airport, was tried broadly across Scotland in 2023. But in just 2 years, they had to roll that back because of the rates of rising sexual harassment and abuse against women. It amounted to about 3 offenses per week in those shared spaces. So this kind of format has been tried. It fails women, and it puts them at risk. And I just want our state to step up to give clarity to our entities that safety for women is important. They're free to provide single-sex or single-use, single-occupancy spaces, but we do not need to force women into those dangerous situations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Representative. That concludes the hearing for House Committee Substitute for House Bill 2536. That also concludes the hearing on Families and Seniors and Health, and I make a motion that we adjourn. Can I get a second? Thank you. That concludes the hearing.